for me, it lessened the hype because when I see some characters in these new games brought back that I used to play back in the day, and then seeing them be so different that at this point you could call Serena or Darius a different character with their gameplay, and it honestly wouldn't even matter. They wouldn't be losing much because, I mean, the character plays nothing like Serena does in Armageddon. Darius has nothing from Deception, you know? So if you were to change into other names, nobody would know because we wouldn't be able to recognize them because out of their gameplay, aside from their name, you know, we can't tell if that's Serena or Darius if you played games in the past. But yeah, to get onto some more of the gameplay, because I don't want to just sound like I'm talking about, you know, looks and nostalgia.
Yeah.
Regarding MK12, the movement was one of the biggest things I didn't enjoy. Just having the game be, I was hoping they would make the game be more snappy and fluid. Kind of take the good movement characters from MK11, like Rain, Melina, Fujin, etc., and have them be as a base for MK12, so you can move quicker. But what they kind of did was they kind of, I guess, like I said, I'm not sure if this was a Havoc issue only, or maybe some characters had good movement. Like, I'm guessing Johnny had better movement, but Havoc, his block dash felt very clunky. You would move to it. It felt like the way that they wanted to be in the game was they wanted to move a little bit quicker, but not too smooth. It's like they didn't want you to play too much of a fast-paced style. They want you to have a form of block dashing, but for it to not be so freestyle where you can move freely with it, which to me, I feel like that's limiting the game and making it feel less enjoyable to play. And regarding some of the depth and combos on characters, again, this maybe was a Havoc issue, but when I was playing Havoc and learning his combos, I was only in training mode for like a couple days, and then I never went back to training mode because I learned his main BMVs to do like back 2-2, back forward 1 plasma launcher, then back 2-2 corpse spin for your basic combo. And then after I learned the combos with Darius and Serena, I was like, you know what, let me just play Cyrax because I feel like this character gives Havoc pressure, gives him combos. Now I can combo off both of my throws with Cyrax Helicopter. Now I can do back 2-2 and either pressure and go into jailing corpse spin or confirm and go into other like throw setups, or I can do back 2-2 forender low, launch him off that. I can hit people with his back 4-2 roll under a projectile. And when I hit them, I could call Cyrax to get a combo off that. So it was like, well, there's no reason for me to use other cameos, but this one I can get a combo off basically everything. I can start pressure off everything. I could, you know, chip people out with this. So I settled on Cyrax and I was playing him for a couple of weeks before I started losing interest in the game. And I remember playing Detroit. There was so many like hard to blockables and he was playing Shang. He would end the combo.
It still is.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming this was a Kung Lao thing because Kung Lao had a low hat. What Detroit would do is he would do a combo and knock me down, and then it would be give him enough advantage where I would have to get ready to block a low hat cameo assist coming at me while he was doing a jump in, and that was like repeatedly rinse and over and over. And I was like, this kind of feels like I'm playing MPX again, you know? Like I was expecting to play something new and interesting, but it feels like, okay, it's just a lot of harder blockables and 50-50s. Okay, whatever. Then he would be hitting me with combos, and the combos were so long and exaggerated. I was like, Detroit, how hard is it to do this combo? He was doing a Shane combo with me up there for BB, and I'm not even joking. Like I'm being serious here. The combos were like 20 seconds long. He would do whatever combo, morph, combo launch, and then do fireball, and he has me in the air doing like far fireball, mid fireball, close fireball, mid fireball, far fireball, close, EX4. And I'm like, wow, this is doing barely any damage. You're doing all of this 20-second long combo for just 40%, and I guess you're building meter. I'm like, Detroit, is this hard to do at all? Like, is it at least involving for you? I know I'm just here watching this for 20 seconds, but are you? And he's like, no, it's not really hard to do. It's easy. So he's wasn't really having fun doing this, even though it's very long, which is, I guess they were trying to make flashy combos. But the thing is, to make combos exciting, they have to make combos difficult to do, right? If you make combos easy and long, it just makes the game kind of feel repetitive and boring in a way, even though you would think because the game has a long, flashy combo, it's supposed to be automatic hype. And it was kind of cool when I saw it the first match from the Detroit Zone. I'm like, wow, that was a long, really, like a really long, crazy combo. But then I kept seeing it every round for like the next hour. And I was like, Jesus, this combo is just, I think I'm sick of seeing this. When I was playing other people, like in Super Bowl, and he was playing Baraka at that time, and I was like, ooh, let me see what Baraka does in this game. In MK11, he was kind of, whatever. Playing him, and everything is down one chop, down one call, Cyrax assist, come in, string, chip, 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 Sarkis. I'm like, okay, well, I guess they made Baraka like an Unga Bunga, just offense repeat character. And Soup was laughing because he's like, yeah, this character is like so easy to play in this net. I'm like, well, okay, so maybe it's not only my character that's not as interesting and hyped to play. So then, I'm like, let me play Combat League. Maybe I just got unlucky playing hard to blockable Shang and playing Unga Bunga, just mash strings and plus all day on block Baraka. So I get to Combat League and I'm playing people. And, I go up against Raiden. And I'm like, okay, what does Raiden do in this game? In MK11, he was kind of weak. Round one, fight Combat League. Down one, down one, down one, shocker, down one, shocker, down one, shocker, assist, down. I'm like, dude, is this entire character just down one into special, into call assist, down one? If the hits, you get a combo. I'm like, I don't know how we went from. I know you didn't like MK11, but how we went from MK11, which already had a lot of complaining about pokes and down ones, and now I'm playing MK12, and it feels like they ramped up the poking. Where now, like the mind game was, if you try to press a button after my down one, I'm gonna do down one special and combo you. But if you guess that right, I'm gonna meet a burn, and then I'm gonna come in and down one and throw you again. And it's just like they they overblown the issue so much. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's just Raiden. So I played some more combo league, playing other characters. And I remember running into Tanya player, and I'm like, what does Tanya do in this game? I wonder how they, she looks so cool and interesting and unique. Round one, fight, get next to her, armor, down one, armor, repeated armor. I'm like, dude. So this game, basically, for what it felt like for me, we waited 4 years for this game to come out. I don't know why I went into it thinking it was going to be this amazing stuff because they had 4 years to create it. I was expecting to sit down and have my mind blown for them having so much time to create this game. I was not expecting to see Down One City, Armor Party, again, 50-50 Heaven, and Unga Bunga Mash. It felt like they took a lot of the things that were not enjoyable from previous games, like the armor from MK9, the Mash poking from MK11, the obnoxious 50-50 hard blockers from MKX, and they crammed it all into MK12. This to me was kind of why, after playing for like a few weeks, I was like, you know what? Man, my computer's kind of crap. Do I really want to invest and buy an entire computer when I don't really enjoy this game right now? Like, there's nothing really I'm playing. So after that, I just went back to playing Counter-Strike, really. Because at that point, I was so into Counter-Strike and I was playing, having fun learning the game, leveling up, that I just kind of lost interest. And I was like, no, I guess I'll just wait for the next game. That's when they released this Legacy Kollection. I'm like, oh, this is hype. I remember me, you, and Tom were talking a few weeks ago, like a day after it got announced, right? Like, this is sick. They're bringing all these older MK games back. We're going to have GGPO now. What if they get to the 3D era, right? Then after, if this is a huge success, then they'll be able to do MKDA online, Armageddon, Deception, MK vs. DC, maybe even MK9 when they get that. Like, this is going to be awesome. Because now, if we're stuck with a current interest game where we may not enjoy as much as I wasn't a big fan of like Injustice 1 or Injustice 2, I did like MK11 a lot more than Injustice 1, 2, and MKX. Because that game, to me, it was fun grinding Combat League in MK11. And that was one of the cool things I enjoyed about that game. So one thing I want to see them take from MK11 is to bring back the Combat League for this Legacy Kollection. First of threes ranked with seasonal rewards, or just have all these ranks you could gather up to, like Elder God, and maybe expand on it so there's more than just 8 ranks. But to me, like, when it comes to MK12 now, obviously I'm not talking about how MK12 is now, right? I don't know how the game is now. Maybe they fixed all that. Maybe MK12 isn't just armor the game and down one special or Unga Bunga. Like, because what I'm talking about, I want to make sure people know this. I'm talking about month 1 MK12 when I got into. This could all change. Like, Havoc is probably a better character now. Darius is probably,
Let me say this, because they did nerf like a lot of the down one specials, like the Raiden stuff. He's like mid tier now. They did nerf some of the Baraka stuff, and obviously Cyrax, right? Because the first 2 months of the game or so, it was essentially all, helicopter. So they did nerf a lot of that. And the game, at least in my opinion, is a lot more enjoyable. They did buff Havoc, maybe in ways you probably wouldn't like, though. So, like now he does because he has a lot of overhead. So
wait, let me guess before you tell me. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Let me guess. Fine. The way they buffed him, did they give him, I guess, maybe new 50-50s or new combos that go into big damage?
Yeah, essentially. So essentially, he does a lot more damage, especially with Mavado, which is a cameo obviously you probably didn't play because you quit too early. And then he has like this essentially like low swipe, which launches. to be fair to them, like if you do it as a wake up as an EX, then it doesn't launch, but it obviously has armor. So I know it was probably buffed in ways that you probably wouldn't appreciate. Um, Nonetheless, I'm glad you're talking about this because I think like a lot of these modern games kind of play similar. And I'm not saying if you're good at MK now you're gonna go to Tekken, you're gonna beat Knee, right? But even Tekken like has arguably maybe the longest combos ever, aside from maybe Tekken Tag 2. So does Street Fighter 6 probably, if you consider like the drive rush into normal and then you can drive rush again, I mean you guys know, right? So I think a lot of these uh, modern games kind of play similar in certain aspects, and I think the biggest difference is that for the first time in ever, how the game is perceived visually in terms of like, if I'm a casual player or even like an intermediate player, when we watch, that is incredibly important because we are, potential customers if we don't have the game already, of course. And how we perceive the game is very, very important to obviously Harada, Ed Boon, et cetera, right? So I think that's really the difference. And I think at least I'm just, I'm just, it's a conjecture, but I'm speculating that it's very, very important for casual gamers to have some kind of, oh, look, he just did a huge combo and he came in and then this other guy just did armor. Oh my God. Like it's supposed to have this. Oh, it's supposed to play out, like you say, kind of like almost like a movie, right? Because like very cinematic in nature. And I think that's very important in this modern day and age. By the way, I'm not necessarily justifying it. I'm just from a, from an observational point of view, from an observational perspective, kind of documenting the way these games are played nowadays and what's important.
Yeah, I would agree on what you said regarding the different change and how fighting games have kind of developed a certain meta where they kind of favor. But the reason why I didn't want to talk about MK12 or really dive into it in this episode, well, I guess it's too late for that, is because I mean, I didn't really play MK12 that long. I only played it for like basically a month. So, I mean, who really wants to hear someone's opinion on a game from 2 years ago that doesn't even play the same way it is now? I mean, I guess aside from the gameplay not being too enjoyable for me personally, I'm not saying it was bad because I'm sure a lot of people enjoyed the armor with Tanya and the harder blockers with Kung Lao and the Baraka Unga Bunga. I'm sure some people to them was enjoyable. For me, it wasn't. But aside from that, one thing I like when it comes to unrest games is it's fun to explore when they introduce a new game and they always have new mechanics to mess around with. New mechanics that you've never seen before, really. And one thing about MK12 is I was a bit disappointed how there wasn't a lot of new stuff to mess around with. Like, yes, they brought back Floss Block, but we already kind of knew how to do it in MK11, right? It's not like just they put it in the game. We're like, oh, what's this? What's this mechanic? We kind of already understand how Floss Block works. And then they kind of stripped it in ways where they redesigned it so that I did like how they make it so you have to floss block every hit now instead of you only floss blocking the first hit, and then in MK11 it makes everything else be like all automatic floss block. I think that was bad. So the way that they did it in MK12 where you have to actually floss block every separate hit for it to count is good. They did remove the follow-ups of floss block in MK11, which I mean, okay, I guess you could say they wanted it to be for you to have less options out of it, which is fair. But in reality, when you look at some of the new mechanics they brought back, it's kind of like they've reworked previous mechanics for them to not feel completely brand new. For example, when you do the up block, right, which you can do in MK12, I remember like there was a way you could. Baraka had this jump up overhead launcher, and I remember with Havoc, if you false blocked it, it would make it unsafe and punishable, things like that. But to me, when I look at up block, it's not really a new mechanic to me. When I look at it, it looks like a repurposed floss block where you make something unsafe or launch them after. But instead of you having to execute the false block, you just tap up. So it's kind of like an easier, more straightforward, just tap up. And this essentially gives you a combo after blocking a certain move with no meter required. Whereas in MK11, you would have to false block something and then execute the up two quickly so you get the launch and then come off, some of your meter, which so to me, up two didn't feel like a brand new mechanic. It just feels like a repurposed false block launcher component that they removed the false block and made it separate thing. And then the another new mechanic they had in MK12 is the down two launcher. And this to me again seems like the crush and glow mechanic in MK11 off the down 2. But instead of it being automated where you get to do it once per round, you launch them, cutscene, and you get a combo, now they made it so instead of it being free and automated, you have to use your meter to do that. And there's no cutscene, and you can do as much as you want at cost of meter, whereas in MK11 you can only do it once. So you can say that the down 2 launcher is kind of like the down 2 questionable from MK11. The up block is kind of like the false block launcher from MK11. What else? What other new mechanics? Oh yeah, and then they had the fatal blow that they brought back, which I'm surprised because fatal blow was probably the one thing I don't think anybody liked in MK11. I certainly didn't, because it's basically an armor launcher you get for free just for getting your butt kicked in the game. So I don't know why they brought back, but they did nerf it by giving it a freeze frame like Injustice. That was good. I just I don't understand why they would have that over something like an X-ray. I feel like X-ray was always the better way to do like a devastating blow attack instead of having just a fatal blow be given to you. And I really hope for MK13 they do away with the fatal blow and just get rid of it and bring back the X-ray where you have access to a devastating, powerful move, but you have to build up to it and it'll cost all your resource to use.
Yeah, I think you make good points, and I think we're kind of digging into the more subjectivity, right? Matter. For example, if you listen to Tom, one of his talking points is, and by the way, it's not just Tom. I'm using Tom as an example just because he's also one of my closest, friends in the FGC. Like legacy is very, very important to him. So most of the gameplay aspects in MK12 are legacy in nature, right? The wake up is very similar to MKX. Armor is more like MKX. Combos are long, right? Even longer than MKX. But there's, it's essentially the same, right? MK11 was very different with combos. It was a breakaway. Obviously, combo breaker, right? That goes back to MK9. Uh, but I feel like that's what a lot of the community wanted. And essentially, everything is more or less legacy aside from the main mechanic in the game, which is the cameo system. I would argue that's a good thing, because a lot of the mechanics that were in MK11, I know you like the game. I didn't. We don't want to go back in the past and uh, reiterate all those boring talking points. But I think in general, I think it's perceived that the mechanics in MK11 are not very well liked, even by the players who enjoy playing the game, or at least they're very polemic, right? They're very controversial. They're very polarized. I think that's a fair assessment. I'm sure you would agree. So NRS took the stuff that people generally, not everybody, like from the older games. I was like, look, here's the older stuff. I know they were not everybody, but they were like generally well received, unlike the universal mechanics at MK11, which a lot of people couldn't just, they couldn't stand. So, and they added the cameo system, which obviously is super controversial as well. But again, if you look at the wake up system, the combo system, the combo breaker system, all that stuff is kind of legacy. And I think that's what a lot of people like Tom, especially some of the older players, were asking for. Am I being fair when I say that, or because I don't want to represent people's view, but I think in general, I think that was the case.
Yeah, that's a fair point. To say MK12 is more legacy based. Well, it really depends on how you want the game to play because I guess it's up to how much you enjoy a previous game. Like I know if they do a legacy MKX, it would be huge for a lot of people. But for me, as someone who's not a big fan of repetitive 50/50s over and over, I wouldn't enjoy that kind of legacy. I would rather than take legacy in other areas. But with MK12, in a way, you're right. They did take false block from MK11. They just reworked it a bit, which is legacy, you could say. And then the cameos are kind of like the variation system, but instead of it being a pool that's unique per character, it's a pool available to every character in the game to select. So you can choose, like, in a way, a variation that gives you other moves that you can use as assist and access to certain attacks or combos you wouldn't be able to do normally. But to me, I would say I really would want them for MK13 maybe steer away from any of the customization in terms of selecting a variation or selecting a cameo. Because that's one thing MKX started, is MKX started the whole variation and choose a, part of your character that you want to alter. I was never a huge fan of that. And I'm hoping for MK13 they kind of drop the whole, selecting a variation or customizable stuff and just go into something different. I'd rather see if they want to have something that you choose a character and you have access to these different attacks one at a time, then I'd say bring back the 3D MK stance switches that you could do in game. So that way you could have a defensive stance, you could have an offensive stance, you get a weapon stance for footsies, stuff like that. That way, when you play a character, you can specialize in one stance, but at the very least, you'll have access to everything on the character in the game, right? So you'll see certain people playing different styles. Like you'll see a Sub-Zero playing more of a defensive style. You'll see another Sub-Zero playing the offensive stance more in a match and being aggressive. Then you'll see even another Sub-Zero playing more of the footsie stance, and then maybe we'll see other Sub-Zero players that can incorporate all three of them at the perfect times, right? Those will be the players that can be very good when they know most of the character in the game. What do you think about that?
Actually, I love that. You guys will be surprised when you talk to, to FGC members. Ask them, what do you want in a game? You would be surprised how people have different perspectives as far as like how a fighting game should play, right? And trust me, Rio and I have gotten in so many shouting fests privately about what should be in a game, what shouldn't. But this is one thing I 100% agree on. No more gimmicks, no more variation systems, no more custom moves, no more cameo systems. Um, Give us quote unquote complete characters. Dude, it's been so long since I like played some of these older games. I completely forgot that even they had stances, right? Like Deception, Armageddon. Well, I think Deception had 3, right? And Armageddon had 2, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Yeah,
so that would be a great way to incorporate more strings, more special moves, etc., etc. I'm 100% on board with that. I agree with you also 100% that the cameo system is essentially a variation system, but for all the characters, right? Uh, and I think enough is enough. I think people want to play one character. Give us more moves, give us all this stuff, but no more of of these gimmicks.
yeah, and like you said, the whole thing for being have legacy, but I understand they want to keep having some of MKX brought back, right? Like MKX started the whole choose a piece of your character or choose something, bring it to battle. You can't have all of it, just choose some of it. I understand they want to keep bringing that back, but in my opinion, why not bring the things that maybe MKX did better instead of that? Like, for example, they even have elements from MK9 that they brought. The throw 50/50 was from MK9. And I'm not a fan of that. I wish they could have brought other things that weren't that. They even brought the armor from MK9, It's like they kind of choose two of the things that weren't as well received and enjoyable. Like, because I never remember MK9 being praised for their armor or being praised for the 50 throw system, which those are two things they took and still keep adding to their new games today. So it'd be interesting if they could maybe start mixing it up a bit, maybe add a whole new throw system in the next game instead of having this throw system that we've had since MK9 now for like 15 years, and maybe get rid of this customizable system that we've had now for like over 10 years from MKX, do something new instead of that. If they bring back the stances, what they could do is they don't have to have every stance be offensive, defense, or footsies, right? They can mix and match. They can make characters play differently. But the thing is, when you look at some of these past old games, you don't have to make a game play, exactly how the older games did. You can take elements that were unique or interesting that other games didn't do that MK did, like the stance stuff, or like even from the older MK games, how throws used to work in some of the 2D Mortal Kombats. The way throws worked in those games is not how throws work in any of the newer games or any other fighting games. It was very unique to Mortal Kombat. So what I'm hoping is when they do get to MK13, is they start really looking back all the way from the original MK1 through past all the other 2D MKs, through all the 3D MKs, even some of the NRS games, and take specifically things that worked, things that were unique, things that add to MK's name, and keep that. Like, for example, one thing that I'd like to see return from MK9 is the X-Ray. I think that, in a way, is better than Fatal Blow in every way possible. I think Fatal Blow is just an X-Ray, but done in a lazy and less enjoyable way when you play the game, in more of a serious manner.
Yeah, no, you makes a good point. Again, I repeat, this is more like a subjective matter, unlike the online stuff that we talked about earlier, because we can all agree we want good online. Like, why would you want bad online, right? But as far as the gameplay elements, as far as what the gameplay mechanics are, it's a little more difficult to assess. For example, I like armor. I consider armor like an invincible Dragon Punch in Street Fighter or even King of Fighters, um, or even like an armor move in Tekken. I don't think I think there's an issue with like safe launching armor. I think that's what people are especially complaining about, especially in MKX, right? That can be balanced and reworked, in my humble opinion. So I don't think armor is inherently bad as a defensive mechanic, especially when a lot of these newer games they're very like they're more offensive based than ever, and we no longer like have invincible backdashes. We no longer have like one like no bar, dragon punches and Shoryuken. So I understand you would handle it differently, which is fine, but I do think armor to me still has a place. The problem is not the armor itself. It's stuff like, launching armor, it's safe, and, it's a footsie destroyer. I completely understand that argument. But again, I do like armor in principle. I don't think it's the armor itself that's broken. It's more like the stuff that launches. And if you have too much of it, it's not fun to play against. So I completely understand your perspective in that aspect.
Well, it depends. I'm not saying they shouldn't bring armor launchers. You can have an armor launcher be in the game and it can fit a character. The problem is it depends on what character it's attached to, Like, do we really need Sonya from MK9 throwing out an armor launcher every 5 seconds because she has 1 bar meter? Yeah, like stuff like that. If they can bring back an armor launcher, it just has to be on a character that has a specific style that fits an archetype, right? Like, for example, let's say you have like Grundy from Injustice 1, right? If he were to have an armor launching move, it wouldn't be a big deal, right? Because he's not full screen zoning repeatedly, or has some of the best footsies. The character design to get up close, so maybe you can have something like that. And you can have armor work differently too. Like some characters can have different drawbacks to their armor. Like some characters could have 1 hit of armor, some characters have multiple hits of armor, some characters could have armors that only work on projectiles, some characters could have armor that you take double damage when you absorb an attack, things like that. So they can make every character feel very different and unique. They don't have to globalize every character where it's like, well, this is how armor works for everybody. Everybody has 1 hit of armor, everybody takes normal damage out of armor, and everybody can do armor for 1 bar. I think it's best if they start expanding on characters and making them play differently with mechanics. You don't have to have every character
Yeah,
follow a
and to
set
be
of rules.
Havoc, right? Because he has multiple. I don't know how many hits, maybe like 4 or 5, and so does Ashra with her like advancing armor. And then they also added, which is what I like. Like, for example, Kung Lao's armor is no longer safe, like it used to be. But when you spend 2 bars, then it's safe. It's -2. Again, it's for 2 bars. I do like. I think maybe that's the way to go. Again, not for every character. It depends on the character, right? But I feel like maybe that's the direction they should go in. Like all armor unsafe, no exceptions. Like, you spend 1 bar, you're getting punished, period. But maybe for some defensive archetypes, like you suggested, then maybe they get to spend another bar and then it becomes safe. I think that's a good balance, and it works very well for Kung Lao currently. Again, they nerfed his armor, needed to be nerfed because he was just launching and armoring nonstop like pre-patch Tanya. But if you spend 2 bars, then it becomes safe. And again, you still have to use a visor, you just can't spam it, right? Because that's a lot of resources. I believe that's something that can be incorporated in the next, whether it's Mortal Kombat or Injustice game, and it can be balanced.
Yeah, and you mentioning Havoc, I agree. Havoc is actually one of the characters I enjoyed in the beginning. I thought his armor was well done and unique because you have access to this armor attack. It has 3 hits for regular, and I believe the X one had 4 hits. And in doing so, like on paper, it would be like this is kind of silly, right? 3 hitting armor attack that is safe on block. But the way that they designed it is it has short range, and even though it's safe on block, one way Detroit was punishing is when he would read my armor, he would just walk back slightly and then with punishing. So that was something you'd do. So even though in reality it's like a safe armor shouldn't exist, the way that they did Havoc's armor, in my opinion, was good. It was a slow armor attack that takes multiple hits, doesn't have a lot of range, and it can be baited or jumped over and comboed. But when you need to get through something, like let's say he comes in with Kung Lao low hat unblockable, he's jumping in and doing a string. I had a chance sometimes to read that and do my armor, even though sometimes it would get stuffed or he would bait it and punish it. That was fine. So Havoc, surprisingly, one of the characters I enjoyed how they did his armor.
Yeah, they did end up buffing it, but like I don't know. because it's slow as well. But I think they buffed it for like maybe up to 10 frames. But he's still not. I wouldn't still call him an armor character. That move is still very good.